You won't be able to see the fruits of Steve Nosal's labor for another 5 months, but the plan for the Sunken Gardens at 27th and Capitol Parkway is well underway.
Tonight, this edition of Lance's Journal provides us with a behind-the-scenes look at what it takes to get the Sunken Gardens ready for the summer. Here's Lance with this story. Lance?
It really is kind of crazy to think that one of the most absolute gorgeous areas of Lincoln was once a giant trash pit. But that is precisely the case when you're talking about the Sunken Gardens, the beautiful byproduct of a plan that put people back to work during the Great Depression in 1930.
What we call this is a holding greenhouse. Its main function is to hold this plant material over for next year.
Steve Nosal started working for the city of Lincoln in the spring of 1976.
I came to Lincoln to design gardens. That was my whole intent.
Steve is a 1968 graduate of Columbus Scotus High School.
Well, what we're looking at are all of the plants that we harvested out of the Sunken Gardens that we're going to reuse again this coming year.
Steve says, to put it quite simply, the city of Lincoln could not afford to buy the majority of these plants if they had to start over from scratch every summer.
Just simple things like the Thai giant, those great big leaf plants that everybody loves in the garden. Just a little bitty chunk of the root is $50. And so, you know, we can start growing our own.
If you've ever experienced the Sunken Gardens in full bloom, it probably wouldn't surprise you to know that there are influences of classic artists around every corner.
To do a combination of growing plant material scientifically, keeping it alive in Lincoln, and doing it in an art form that would mimic what the masters have shown us, be it Monet or Renoir or Van Gogh.
The theme in the Sunken Gardens this summer is Moon River.
You know, think of a moon reflecting on a river at night.
Steve and Alice Reed have been collaborating their garden designing talents since 1984.
We'll just sort of look at each other and go, oh, that'll work.
Steve compares designing the Sunken Gardens to writing music.
When we design the gardens, you know, we're looking at Moon River, there's movement in the brushstrokes of the plants in the garden, and we create repetition, which is a musical concept.
Every summer, I make it a point to try and get some pictures of me and my family enjoying the majesty of the Sunken Gardens in full bloom.
These are some old design maps or design details of how the garden is laid out.
For more than 4 decades, Steve has taken great pride in preserving a great Lincoln tradition.
When people come up and they thank you and they're happy that you did what you did and they applaud you for it, I mean, there's no monetary compensation for that feeling.
Coming up on May 11th, Steve and Alice will host their annual event that's called Wake Up the Beds, where 75 to 100 people will come together to install approximately 50% of the entire Sunken Gardens in one day. And I can't wait to see how Moon River turns out this summer.
Such a beautiful, iconic place in Lincoln. Thank you, Lance.